My name is Alan Martin. I had a series of near-death experiences as the doctors resuscitated me several times during a prolonged heart attack. Before I go into the story of my experiences detailed below, I would like to insert a near-death experience I had in 2011 at the age of 71. On the 18th of August, 2011, I died numerous times on the resuscitation table due to third-stage heart block. I went through the whole drama of my heart stopping, flatlining repeatedly. Adrenaline and atropine were injected directly into my heart, and the shock paddles and chest depressions had to be used over and over again in a desperate effort to get my heart to beat again on its own. If I had any doubts about life after death, I have none now. Each time my heart stopped, my soul or consciousness left my body and went into other dimensions of existence. At first, I only remembered a little of what went on in those 3 hours of life and death struggle, but lately have begun to remember more and more about the strange otherworldly realms I saw during that time. Each time they got my heart to beat, I came back. I saw numerous people all gathered to welcome me into the afterlife. All my beloved were there. It seemed like a welcome home party, but as soon as the doctors got my heart to beat, I was drawn back to the earthly world. Another time I saw a tree with many books situated around it. Reading what was on the covers, I saw that they contained all the knowledge and mysteries of existence. One very large book seemed to consolidate what was in all the smaller books. When I tried to lift it, I found it was too heavy to carry, and I decided to return later for it. I saw a beautiful pulsating orb of golden light that I took for the Lord Jesus, as it emanated perfect peace and love. I had no tunnel or meeting of a being of light, I think because the medical team was continually resuscitating me. After 3 hours, the doctors installed a temporary pacemaker to maintain my pulse. I was told by the doctor that I had been really dead. The doctor said if I had arrived hospital even 5 minutes later, it would have been impossible to revive me. I am 71 years of age now, and would not have minded if I had died then. I suppose there must be some things left for me to do, because a whole lot of favorable coincidences made it possible for me to survive. I had taken a nap on that Thursday night, and a dear friend of mine phoned late at night, a thing he had never done before. I woke up with heart going crazy, almost stopping. My wife immediately called the ambulance, and they got to my home in 7 minutes flat. The hospital is less than a half kilometer from my home. I was there in 5 minutes, and when I got there, I received attention immediately. Note that if my friend did not phone me at the exact moment he did, I would never have woken up and died in my sleep. I now have a permanent pacemaker in my chest, which should last 10 years. Despite the great shock, I am feeling very alive and well. Also note that the medical term for what happened to me is complete atrial ventricle heart block. From the time I was a little boy, I knew and saw things that other people did not. Many people thought of me as a strange and enigmatic boy, and some still do as an adult. I often perplexed and even frightened my parents, family, and school teachers. I would wonder why my parents only greeted the people that came through the front door and ignored the lovely and sometimes very scary people that walked into the house through the walls. I knew when a person or family member was in pain or feeling unwell, just be looking at them and commenting about what was troubling them at the time. I could feel their pain and the area of the body from which the ailment was coming from. I remembered that as a child I had always had 3 ethereal friends, or childhood imaginary friends. Their names are Ginnery, Rough Raven, and Claudius. Of course, they were my real guardian entities, or guardian angels if you like. These were referred to as my imaginary friends by my relatives, but how could a little boy of 3 come up with such complex names? I often told my parents and grandparents that I saw Jesus in heaven, that I even went swimming with him at times, informing them that he did not wear a dress or have a beard. I also heard repeatedly many strange sounds, voices, and could smell things that other people did not notice. An event that stands out vividly in my memory of this long ago time was having to walk a long distance home with my parents late at night, because we had missed the late night bus after a movie. I told my parents not to worry during the walk. I told them I would pray for a bus to come and pick us up on the way. I prayed, and a moment later, a bus came and stopped the driver, telling he would take us home free of charge. He dropped us off to the amazement of my parents right in front of our home in town. As a small boy of 6 years of age, I took a way home from school that I knew was not safe, and my parents would not have known where I was or went if I got lost or hurt. There was a small, narrow gravel path winding through a thick plantation of trees. It was about 1.5 miles long, and when I was deep into the plantation, I looked back and saw a large man with an evil grin on his face. I got really frightened and scared because I knew in my heart that he was out to hurt me in some bad way. I started to walk faster, but he just easily kept up. The faster I walked, the faster he walked, all the time closing the gap between the two of us. The next thing, to my amazement, suddenly, there was a friendly man walking at my side. I looked back and saw that when the large bad man saw this nice person, He seemed startled and began to back off further and further until I could see him no more. As he continued to walk with me and guide me out of this thick plantation, the friendly man said, "Joe," my nickname, "never, ever walk alone in this plantation again. Promise me that, Joe." I turned to thank him, but he was gone. He had simply disappeared. I really believe he was an angel who had taken on the form of a man. My frantic parents and aunt were searching all over for me. My Aunt Bessie told me later that she had finally found me at the exit of the narrow path. After I told her the story, she was convinced it was an angel from God. I did not really comprehend the event properly then, but as the years went by, I came to know that God had sent one of his beautiful angels to save me. I love God. The account of my knowledge of the mystical, as well as the heavens and the afterlife and experiences, starts here. Early one morning, I died while all was still dark. I rose up bodily until the blue became black. I awoke in a dark realm where the boundaries between my physical self and everything physical around me slowly began to dissolve. I saw an infinity of stars lighting up the night of the still dark early morning sky. Quietness like a soft, warm, and comforting peaceful blanket descended on my body, soul, and mind. Although now outside my physical self, I could still somehow hear the sweet song of chirping, singing birds, and I knew their sweet and wonderful, beautiful voices were in absolute harmony all together as one, reflecting in the audible, the fundamental particles that continually dance and dart like tiny electrons within the infinite mind of God. Outside, leaves rustled in the cool autumn night, and although my physical body was still indoors on a bed, I could still feel the cool breeze. I, nevertheless, continued to experience and absorb the wonderful scent of grass and the fragrances of flowers that permeated the physical earth. In some ways, I had become two separate entities, with separate interlinked consciousnesses. Becoming a small point of golden pure energy, I rose high above the earth, to where the blue morning sky became black, and looked down upon the earth. I saw it from the wonder and the glory of the infinite night from a place out in the physical cosmos. I found myself in the presence of a being who appeared to me to be like a pulsating golden orb, similar to my state of being then, but much brighter and more energetic. At this time, I thought this being might be God. Later, I knew he was my guardian angel. Now I remained for a while this tiny bright point of thinking, light, a singularity, and a point of intelligence within the greater light that lovingly embraced me. This being later revealed to me, mind to mind, some wondrous things, which happen in the afterlife, the planet Earth, and the physical universes. This being continually communicated with me, while he took me on a protracted and profound journey into the unknown mystical planes, dimensions, heavenly spiritual places, and realms. Later he told me that he had been my companion all my life, my childhood guardian angel. I began to recall how he had communicated and helped me overcome terrible trauma and trials that I had to endure as a small child, as well as my terrible struggle as an adult with manic depressive disorder. Finding myself looking down upon the globe of the Earth, as if viewing it from a porthole of a spaceship, I noticed that the Earth was revolving very quickly. I was stopping over each country. A very stern warning was given to each leader by the great angel of God. "Mere mortal man, I am displeased with you." Then the Earth moved again, until it stopped over another country, and so on and so on. At this stage, I did not have an ethereal body. I remained a point of light, or a singularity of intense thought. As we hovered together in space above the Earth continued to revolve and stop, each time over another country or continent. After stopping over a country, I continued to hear the great angel booming out its loud, stern warning, repeating to each nation in turn, "Mere mortal man, I am not well pleased with you." I vividly remember, as we were hovered over the Asian continent, looking down upon India and the regions around it, that some great catastrophe would be coming from this region. It would come from beneath the Indian Ocean and affect the Indian subcontinent and countless other peoples in other remote places in a terribly way. Later, this warning was confirmed by the events of the great 2004 Indian subcontinent earthquake and subsequent terrible tsunami that killed over 250,000 people. Later, I remembered that some of the other warnings given to mankind by the angel have also come to pass, namely Hurricane Katrina and the awful cyclone that hit Burma during 2008, killing 250,000 people. Japan's 9.1 earthquake of 2010. There are many other warnings of the cataclysmic events that still have to come to pass in the near future. The Earth is distressed, and God is speaking to mankind through these disasters, saying, "Wake up, look up, and try to understand what is coming upon the Earth very soon." The reader might ask the question, how true is this article? My answer would be that they are absolutely subjectively true. It is a true reflection of what I experienced. while in a deep coma in an altered state of consciousness when very ill. Are they true reflection of some of the mysteries on the other side of life? I cannot say with certainty. I am going to attempt to describe my near-death experiences while very ill and in a deep death coma. This is an almost impossible task, as one has to try and relate the strange and alien multi-dimensions of the other side of life in a way that can be understood in our three-dimensional material world. I found myself in a dark place and did not have the usual into the light tunnel experience. I seemed to have become a dense, intense point of intelligent light energy. I had no body, but at the same time was the personality that inhabited my earthly body. I became pure, undiluted thought. That is the best way I can explain it. There, I was sometimes met by a being of pure light. Not a human form, but pure point of light, who communicated with me mind to mind, via some form of telepathy. I believe at first that it was God, but later demoted it to an angel. Then this being showed me the tunnel that usually follows the near-death event. I could not see either end of the tunnel as we were in total darkness, except for the point of intelligent light. It was an out-of-body experience. I was told that one end of this tunnel led to the light and the other into the dark void. It was explained to me, by this being of light, that this tunnel had two ends. One led into the glorious light of God, and the other into the darkness of the void. Darkness, evil, cannot invade the light, for even one candle dispels the darkness. Only the light, goodness, can impact the darkness. At first I was taken up through the tunnel into a place of learning, a library. I went into the glorious light at the one end of this almost infinite tunnel. While in the light, I experienced great feelings of elation, love, and peace. Here I was shown great events that were to come to planet Earth, sometimes in the future. There was a being with me all the time that I could not see but hear. It spoke with a male voice. I believed it, he were what we mortals refer to as God. Later I was informed the being was not God, but a highly evolved entity, much like an angel. While this was speaking, I could see a panoramic view of planet Earth, as if I was a spaceman observing the Earth, all the time, from the window of a space vehicle. The voice that I had heard not pleased with what was happening on our planet. It kept referring to humanity in the terms of mere mortal man. I am displeased with you. I cannot remember why he was displeased. While this unseen being of pure light being was speaking, the Earth was revolving and stopping at intervals over each continent, in turn, where a warning message was given to each continent. What I can remember was that he was saying to humanity that he was displeased with their evil actions in some way. The frustrating part is that I could not retain all that was said to mere mortal man by this being, while I was with him viewing the Earth. I do, however, clearly remember two warnings. One, that a cataclysmic event would start from the Indian subcontinent. The other, that the Middle East crises would not be solved by the peacekeeping efforts of man, and that divine direct intervention would eventually come to the Earth, sometime in the future. This because of the unbelievable misconduct that some mere men were perpetuating and directly responsible for on Earth. The rape of the Earth. Then Hurricane Katrina and the tsunami happened. It was also shown to me that we are judged by our own actions in life, which dictate where one starts their afterlife eternal destiny. If all our actions had become totally bad, by the end of life, we would become a being of darkness, and it would then be simply become impossible for us to enter the light of God. Darkness cannot penetrate the light. The destiny of this type of person, by his own actions, would be banishment down into the deepest darkness of this vast, infinitely long pit of the tunnel, into the dark void I related earlier, remote from the love of God. I was also shown that there are degrees of punishment in the void, ranging from a gray, depressive atmosphere, progressively down into utter horror, terror, hopelessness, despair, and desolation in black darkness. I got the clear impression that God will one day thrust all evil away from him into the infinite, utter remote darkness of the deep and forget it there forever. There is a beautiful balance to existence. While the dark void is awful, the domain of the light is so peaceful, loving, glorious, and even blissful that I cannot really find adequate words in the English language to describe it. Therefore, we all have varying degrees of light in us that will allow us into the glorious light of Almighty God in the light end of the tunnel, at the end of our earthly life. God can work with the light in us, make us pure, and allow us to progress up the various levels of heaven into his eternal blissful presence of everlasting peace and joy. It is a progress of eternal learning. Then we become one with God, but retain our unique self-awareness, and our unique personalities are retained forever. The above near-death experience stimulated my psychic ability, and I began to travel in the out-of-body state. As the years pass, I have begun to remember more and more of those strange journeys to the other side of physical life. Watch this near-death experience next about a woman who died and had been to heaven twice, where she met a beautiful lady and was given two major choices. That does it for today's video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment below.